Welcome guys to another episode on the Extra Mile. My name is Alex and welcome to the best settings for the Odyssey Plus episode. In this episode we will go over the most important settings that will improve the visual quality in your headset, such as the render scale settings, such as super sampling, the Windows media quality setting that you have from low to very high experimental. We will see what kind of difference that makes. And reprojection of course as well. We will find out how well that works and what you have to do to get it going, and we will compare each setting in terms of its visual quality, what it brings, and what it costs in terms of performance. So let's not waste any more time and get right into it.
So the very first thing that we will do before we start is we will set everything to low so we can really see the differences with the single effects. If I now leave super sampling at 170%, it might not be as easy to see the effect of this, for example. So we will turn everything to low. We will edit our default settings file here so that render target scale is 1.0 and reprojection is deactivated because of the tabs here. And last but not least, super sampling. I will use this function here, manual override, and set it to 100% so it looks nice and crappy, so we can see if the individual settings actually do something. Very important for this test will be this: show GPU performance graph in headset. This unfortunately will not record on screen for you, but what I will be able to see there is how long it takes to render a frame, and by that I can judge if these settings actually cost a lot of performance. For example, if I increase render target scale from 1.0 to 2.0, which is rumored to not cost that much performance, we can check that by enabling this and checking how much time it takes to render the frame when we have it at 2.0. So this should be crucial in judging how cost effective or performance effective all of these settings are. One thing before I forget, if you don't know how to find this file, you go to your Steam library. In my case, I have it on a different hard drive, on the D drive. Steam Apps Common Mixed Reality VR Driver, which is the first app that you need to install in Steam if you want to use your Windows Mixed Reality headset with Steam VR. There we have a subfolder called Resources, then Settings, and then here you have the default file. You just double click that and then you can edit these values. Anyway, let's start off with Project Cars 2. We will use that to test all of these changes, and let's see how it looks right now with everything turned off. So before we start, I want to show you my settings here in Project Cars 2. These will stay the same, so the only thing that affects the visual performance and the game performance is what we change outside of the game, super sampling and so on. This is very important in Project Cars 2. Crank up the anti-aliasing as high as possible. That really made a huge difference in the visual quality, obviously, but it was very effective, so I just wanted to point that out. In-game super sampling does not work for Project Cars 2 for Windows Mixed Reality headsets at least. So these are the rest of the settings, just that you can see what I am working with here. Alright, so let's start the game and check out the baseline here, so to speak. Alright, here we go. Interestingly enough, it actually doesn't look too bad. There's quite a bit of flickering going on in the distance there and some aliasing. But it's actually not horrible, especially at close distance. Right now, a frame takes 7.3 milliseconds, maybe 7.4, it depends, between 7.3 and 7.5 milliseconds to render. So we are well within our performance limits. And this is our first baseline comparison. Now we will get to testing the first value that we play with. Okay, so the very first thing that I want to test is render scale, because that is probably the single performance affecting item that has the most myths connected to it. People say that it does not really affect performance all that much, and it gives you a lot more clarity and a lot more visual fidelity. And yeah, so let's test that. Render scale 2.0. Let's save this. Let's restart Steam just to be sure. So this is a bit weird. I've rebooted the PC to make sure the setting is saved and loaded up, and to be honest, I don't see a difference at all. Not only do I not see a visual difference, I also don't see a difference in performance. We still need 7.3 to 7.5 milliseconds to render a frame. Performance is exactly identical to render scale 1.0. So now I'm a little bit confused. Let's do a Google search and see if I can find the solution why this does not work at all. Weird. So it seems that a lot of people seem to have that issue. Someone says here that it has absolutely no effect to increase render scale, but only has an effect to decrease it. Another one says he's 100% sure that it's not placebo. So anyway, here's another step that this guy said that we should do. Steam config, Steam VR settings, edit another file. I think that, yeah, let's give that a try and see if that changes things. So far, render scale did absolutely nothing, but we will give it another shot. Alright, here's the file, and we're supposed to change render target multiplier to 2 instead of 1. So let's see where we find that. The closest thing that I have is render target scale right here, and that is already at 2. So I'm confused. All I can say so far through this test is that changing this value here doesn't seem to do anything. I have one suspicion though. Let's start Steam. I think the manual override might have cancelled out the super sampling effects. So let's make sure that that was not the case. Project Cars 2 still set to 100% here as well. Okay, so let's go back to 1.0, make sure that everything is still as it was before, and then we will change it back to 2.0 again and see if that makes a change. So whenever I not use manual override, this should render at 1427 by 1777, and when I use this, which is the same resolution, it should be exactly the same, and now I start Project Cars 2. Now it takes me it takes the PC 10.2, 10.3 milliseconds to render a frame, which is close to our 11.1 milliseconds target that we need to keep 90 frames per second. So I don't understand this at all. It should be exactly the same setting. It does look very similar, to be honest, but still it does take quite a bit more performance. 10.3 milliseconds to render a frame in comparison to 7.3. That is really weird. I can't really explain that. If you guys have any idea why that could be. Remember, every other setting is the same. The only thing that we've done is we went from override 100% super sampling to application controlled 100% super sampling. And it costs a lot more performance. I have no idea why that is, but from now on we will continue with the override setting. So, manual override 100%, let's use that. Okay, so the next setting that I want to try, which probably won't do that much at all, is this one here. We will turn this now from low to very high, see if that makes a difference. Okay, so very interesting. It does exactly nothing. The picture looks exactly the same. And we still need 7.2, 7.3 seconds to render a frame, so it did not affect performance either. That's really weird. So far, nothing has affected the performance except for super sampling. But we will get to that in a second. So now, after we've tested two effects that did not affect performance or the visual quality at all, at least it seems like it, now let's test one that does. Let's bump up the manual override, the super sampling value to 150%. We will do this first, and then we will do it through the applications menu again and see if there's a difference in performance. Okay, now we're talking. Yes, with 100% super sampling, we got a very blurry image. With 150% of super sampling, this is actually a lot better. This makes a noticeable difference in the picture quality, and we can see that it affects performance. Now a frame takes 8.8, 8.9 milliseconds to render in comparison to 7.2, 7.3 before. So it actually has a noticeable impact. Gauges are a little bit more readable. This is good. This seems to work. So now the test again. Let's go to applications 150%. See if it looks the same and performs the same. Oh, wow.
Go, go, go.
That is insane. I now need 13.1 milliseconds to render a frame at supposedly the same resolution. Since I don't have reprojection on, I now get a few stutters here and there when I move my head, especially when I move it quickly. Visual quality seems exactly the same as it was with the manual override, but performance is quite a bit worse. This is actually very, very interesting. It has to have a reason. I just can't think of anything. The picture looks the same in terms of quality. I don't know where the performance went. But very interesting. So now I'm getting judders, as I should. As I said, we need 11.1 milliseconds per frame to hit our 90 Hertz target. And now we need 13.6, 13.3 milliseconds. And so we don't have 90 frames per second right now. That is why it starts to hitch a little bit. It still would be playable, but it would be a little bit annoying. But yeah, we have the same performance difference between the manual override and the application control setting as we did when we used 100%. And I can't think of why. Maybe the manual override cancels out another performance hungry setting that I can't think of right now. But if it does not seem to affect the visual quality. So very, very interesting. Application controlled super sampling seems to cost more than the manual override setting. Alright, so now let's crank it up to 200% and see if that increases things further. I've heard that the mixed reality devs from Microsoft themselves said that anything above 150% super sampling does not really work as it should right now. It does not give you that much of a visual boost. But yeah, let's try it out. First again with the manual override and then with application controlled and see how that looks. Oh yeah, we're deep in the red now. Visual quality seems to be actually roughly the same as with 150%. I can't really tell a difference. And it now takes us 13.2, 13.4 milliseconds to render a frame, so we are not hitting our 90 Hertz target anymore. Yeah, but it does not seem to give me any more clarity when I look around than it did with 150%, but it definitely does cost more performance. So it seems like the Windows devs were right, and anything above 150% does not really give you satisfying results, or it does not really make sense because it only uses GPU power. But anyway, now let's try the application control setting and see if that costs performance again. Okay, the game is loading. So if this would be the same performance difference, then we probably would need 15 seconds. Oh, it's even worse. 16.2, 16.3 seconds to render a frame now. Milliseconds, of course, to render a frame now. So now when I move my head, I get a little bit more hitching here and then. It would probably still be somewhat drivable, but it's not very comfortable. So yeah, the performance difference between manual override and application controlled persists. That is interesting. Visual quality is the same. I can't see a difference. It looks exactly the same actually as the 150% super sampling value did. So there's no need, at least at this point in time, to go to anything over 150%, it seems. Alright, before we continue, I want to make sure that the performance difference between the manual override and application controlled is not just limited to Project Cars 2. So let's try that. Let's go to 100% manual and just go for a different app here. Okay, just to make sure that the manual override trick actually does work, I've now loaded up a different game here, which is VR bowling, and I've set it to 150% super sampling through the manual override, and we need exactly 4.0 to 4.1 milliseconds to render a frame. Now we will try this with the application controlled override again and see if there's a difference in performance. Interesting. There is. We now need 4.8, 4.7, 4.9. I just saw 5.0 there even milliseconds to render a frame. So it does take a toll on performance to use the application controlled override, it seems. I have no idea why. If you guys have any ideas why that could be, let me know in the comments. Maybe we can solve this mystery. But yeah, very, very interesting. So, and while we're at it, let's quickly use the bowling VR app to test our render target scale again and see if that still does not make a difference at all. Yup, nothing. No difference whatsoever. Render scale, in my opinion, does not work. Not at all. Weird. Alright, so render scale is a mystery to me. I'm sure that I will get comments that insist that it does something and that this game or that game is basically unplayable without it. I'm really confused by it, to be honest, guys. I don't doubt that some of you see results, but I can only say that there's absolutely no visual impact for me to increasing render target scale, and there's most definitely no performance impact. That I can say for certain. I mean, the visuals are always a little bit of a subjective thing, but yeah, it does nothing for me. So really weird. Anyway, now let's enable the indicator that tells me if motion reprojection is on or off. I should get a little dot in the display. I'm not sure if that will record on screen, probably not, but I will see if reprojection is working or not. Okay, so I didn't see a dot without this being enabled, so let's just enable it. See if that changes anything. Now let's start Project Cars 2, but let's crank up the resolution a little bit so we get into the zone where reprojection is actually needed. Let's go to 200%. Okay, very interesting. So reprojection is now on. I can see that there's a blue dot in the top left of my vision. We need 18 milliseconds roughly to render a frame, and it is smooth. It actually works, and it works really well. There's a noticeable difference to the way it was before when I had the super sampling so high and reprojection turned off. Yeah, that is really interesting. I do not notice. Well, maybe if I move my head really fast, there's some artifacting here and there, but normal gaming speeds where you look into the corner or anything, it works really well. Alright guys, so to summarize this rather weird stroll through the various settings that you can have, this setting, the Windows quality setting, doesn't do anything. If anyone knows what this actually does, what it's supposed to do, where you're supposed to see it, I couldn't see a visual difference, I couldn't see a performance difference between low and very high. No idea what this is supposed to do, but as far as I could tell, it does nothing. Same goes for the render scale. Again, or the render target scale. I'm sure that a lot of you will say it does something for me. I definitely can see it, I can feel it, whatever. I would highly advise you, if you're one of those people who swear by the render target scale, please enable these settings, or this setting here, and check for yourself if there's a difference in the performance. Would be really interesting to hear from you guys. As far as I could tell, and I've tested it in different games now, it actually doesn't do anything. So yeah, really weird. Another thing that we've learned with super sampling is that there is not really that much of a difference between 200% super sampling and 150% in terms of the visual quality. There certainly is a difference in terms of performance, so I would suggest to just keep it at 150%. That seems to be the sweet spot right now, and anything beyond that does not really make any sense. And last but not least, a reprojection does work. It did work reasonably well right now. All you have to do to enable it is delete these two things. Just delete those and the line is active, and then it works. If you want, you can also unlock this line, so you have that little marker that tells you when reprojection is working. Yeah, so this actually worked pretty well.
Alright guys, this is it for this episode. I hope that you could learn a few things to improve your experience with your Samsung Odyssey Plus, and I hope you have a great day. See you in the next episode. Bye bye.